Well, to conduct a choice experiment, basically you hopefully know why you think consumers are buying your product. You ought to have done enough of that research to establish what they want. What are the needs? What benefits are they trying to realize as a result of giving you money for their product? And as is often the case, it's a large list, right? There's a lot of things people will like in your product because you've got sound R&D and you've got strong engineers and you've built a feature-rich product. Problem is, you don't know which things in the product they want and value most. So what you do is you create a way to ask those questions and get them to make trade-offs. And for a layman, I always describe it as a game of Clue. Professor Plum with the candlestick in the kitchen. But once you do that enough in a smart experiment, you can tease out the relative attractiveness of what consumers want most. And then the real power comes when you put money on it.
I've had a question on my mind for some while. I think that anybody who's been in a product ownership role will have entertained this question at some point or another. What does it actually take to create a product that your customers really want? The features that you put into your product, the price that customers are willing to pay, even the perceived value of your product that the customer might have when they evaluate yours against that of one of your competitors. On this episode, I've invited two guests who've spent the last 30 years trying to answer these questions. Cy Wegman and Rob Reul. Cy Wegman spent the last 30 years of his career before joining Predictum Inc. at Procter & Gamble. He ultimately ended up leading Procter & Gamble's statistical and analytics programs across manufacturing divisions. Cy Wegman is also part of the Prism Society, which represents the top 2% of all Procter & Gamble engineers that have risen through the company. Rob brings over 30 years of consulting work across many consumer goods industries, helping them solve many similar questions and deliver millions of dollars in savings. I'd like to encourage you to watch to the end, as Predictum will be announcing that we have participated in Unilever's DataLab ecosystem and won its hackathon called the 5S Challenge in partnership with Capgemini. This is really a big accomplishment. Cy and Rob were at the heart of this win for the hackathon, and we'd love to share the story with you. As always, you can follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can contact us on predictum.com/knowledge company now. Rob and Cy, what does marketing analytics, in the way that businesses practice it, mean to both of you? Not just the technical definition, but what role does marketing analytics serve in the organization?
When I think about the marketing analytics and how it impacted things that I worked on at Procter & Gamble, you could and have worked on projects that were, executed, flawlessly, did great technical breakthrough, but the product itself didn't sell. So it's like wrong product, right process, right, innovations for that wrong product. So the things that really interest me in the marketing analytics is trying to define and find, that right product. So if you get the right product and find out what the consumers really want, then you have a much better chance of being very successful, in innovating and in getting success in your product itself and getting market share and expanding the market itself.
Rob, let me turn it over to you.
Sure. No, so I put his finger right on it. It's real simple for me. Analytics in the marketing realm is all about making sure you make money. And there's three big swaths of places where you look to see if they exist. Are you designing the product the customer or consumer most want? Right? And then are you promoting that product in the commercialization activities such that people try it? Okay? Because if you design the product that most want and then they try it, they're going to conclude it's better if your models are working. And then all products have a natural, useful life. And then competition or hopefully yourself, you come in with something better. So managing that transition of maturation and optimize it in such a way that you cannibalize your own products with your better products before competition does. Managing all three of those things, right, with all your products ongoing is marketing analytics to me.
So you both have sort of alluded to the fact that we can ideally create a really knockout product. We can do great science, we can manufacture it extremely well, but who draws the line if the customer doesn't want the product? And the answer, I think, is the customer draws the line. Are enough companies performing marketing analytics in the way that you've described it right now? And if they're not, why should organizations and individuals care about doing this type of marketing analytics?
I think everybody understands that they want to use data. And of course, we're having a plethora of new tools, that are coming out, especially you hear all the things around AI, machine learning, and these types of things. And I think it's imperative, that companies really do this with the latest innovations. And it's worth a lot of money. Some companies that we have worked with and looked at, they have not had, as much skill in this area as I think that they could have had. And, we've been able to go in and help them do a much better job.
Yeah, so the simple ad I'd introduce here comes to us from a guy named John Wanamaker, who well over 100 years ago ran the largest first ever department store, massive place people could go and shop and buy things, and he spent a fortune on advertising when you asked him about it. And he was talking about what he spent, and he said, "My problem is I know half of it doesn't work. I just don't know which half." And most organizations have this problem. Everywhere I've worked, they all have this problem because they haven't had an ability to figure out, well, what is working and what isn't working. And that's some of the magic of what Cy and I like to bring to the table, which is experimental analytics, which is not forensic. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the monies to be saved is massive.
So, in terms of what customers want and what they don't want, in terms of advertising spend, Rob, you often talk about the role of choice experimentation, and that choice experimentation is a gold standard. So, for our listeners, if they haven't heard of this before, what is choice experimentation, just in simple language? And why is it powerful, say, to a conventional method that maybe marketers would have heard of, like A B testing?
Yeah, well, the conventional method to basically navigate with analytics the business we look at as forensic reporting. Very sophisticated tools, slicing and dicing to tell you what happened last month, last 4 months, last year, this month. A lot of data engineering to make that capability available to the decision makers in the business. What's different is rather than make data about the future based on data from the past, make those decisions based on what people looking at the future want in their future. And that's what the experimentation is. And so choice experiments is the gold standard for doing that kind of work. Experimental designs, sophisticated experiments done at scale to help better predict the future.
Take us through just simple step by step process. How does somebody actually conduct a choice experiment? What would that look like for the marketing department?
Well, to conduct a choice experiment, basically uh, you hopefully know why you think consumers are buying your product. You ought to have done enough of that research to establish what they want. What are the needs? What benefits are they trying to realize as a result of giving you money for their product? And as is often the case, it's a large list, right? There's a lot of things people will like in your product because you've got sound R&D and you've got strong engineers and you've built a feature-rich product. Problem is, you don't know which things in the product they want and value most. So what you do is you create a way to ask those questions and get them to make trade-offs. And for a layman, I always describe it as a game of Clue. Professor Plum with the candlestick in the kitchen, or was it Colonel Mustard in the bath with the hammer or whatever? Or was it Cy with a chainsaw? You never know, right? Until you ask, right? But once you do that enough in a smart experiment, you can tease out the relative attractiveness of what consumers want most. And then the real power comes when you put money on it. So we can monetize those utilities and we can tell a client how much more a feature in a product is worth to a consumer
One of the vehicles by which we are able to deduce, play the game of clue, as you will, is through surveys and being able to make choices between different product configurations. So maybe a classic example is I'm looking for a phone. This one has a bigger screen size, but where option 2 has a smaller screen size. But with option 1, longer battery runtime. Option 2, not so much battery runtime. You can create hundreds of thousands of configurations, but the power of these surveys where users choose different product configurations is every time they do another run of the survey or another set of options, you get a little closer and closer to some statistical signal about what the customer actually does prefer, what attributes they like the most.
Yeah, you're on it. That's right. We designed an experiment to show a sequence of or a series of combinations, right? And you certainly can't show any one individual all the combinations, but if you design the research space sufficiently, and we do, you can hit all the edges and you can look at all the key combinations and look at pairwise comparisons and all those ways to stitch together the tapestry. So we'll talk to thousands of customers in what we think of as a thought experiment. Given this, which would you choose, right? Or even better, given these options, what do you think most people would choose? Which is a prediction versus a preference, right? So we can do it in some very smart ways to tease out what a company should offer to the consumer. You can cut that into pieces if you have subject variable data, which is men, women, older, younger, East Coast, West Coast, whatever, right? And you can use that data to find different populations that are most attractive. So maybe you have to split your product.
You can actually map out different price ranges and the attitude that the customer might have at a different price range. What is the method which achieves these attitudes and pricing ranges? And tell me a little bit about your experience developing these sorts of, let's say, preference mappings.
Oh yeah, okay. So there's several different ways actually you can do a price research. Van Westendorp is one of the most common.
That's the one.
The better whatever. The key is there's an economic relationship between a price and the volume, right? And that elasticity is what you want to unpack, right? And you understand at what point is that specific feature set. It's the CVP, right? Cost, volume, profit. Is that going to get us the most profit, which is the end game? In almost all cases, it's about long-term sustainable profit. So Cy and I just did a bunch of work for a client, and what we found was they happily are the least expensive product in their category, but it's a big category, and they make a profit. And what we found was they could actually raise their prices a fair bit, but still be the least expensive in the category. So they're going to get chosen if it's a price buyer, right? And they're going to make more profit. And all they've done is change their prices.
Yeah, the other thing I would throw in there, what Rob was talking about there too, and he mentioned this before, is these we call subject variables. So basically, we want to find these different categories. So it might be a price buyer, it may be a luxury buyer, and if we set up the experiment appropriately, many times we can get those consumer segments out, and we can identify that, hey, 20% of the population are price buyers, 10% are these luxury buyers. These people are really brand loyal to this other brand. Don't worry about them. We can figure a lot of that out in a lot of the analysis that we do.
Nathaniel, here's an example, and I did a talk on this. It's pretty available on the web. I had a client who was one of the largest national retailers in the country, and they were a big provider of appliances. Okay, and one of their business was being able to repair their appliances. They sold everything you'd get in the house, kitchens, laundry, all that stuff, right? And the business that became quite lucrative for them was repairing the appliances they sold, because the warranty from the manufacturer was typically 1 year. And the typical in-home life of an appliance is 14 months, 14 years, right? So there's 13 years it's not under warranty. And they all fail about year 7, plus or minus, right? So people want to eke it out right before they replace it. But they're expensive to repair. And so the study was, what can we do to better service the customers with what they want. And at the end of the day, through segmentation, like Cy's talking about, the research said offer more premium repair, like in time, at a much greater price. Oh, your refrigerator doesn't work? We'll come today for $800 and guarantee it's fixed. Your dryer doesn't work? Okay, well, we can come next week on Tuesday for $200, right? And it used to be every repair will put you next on the schedule, and it was the same amount of money plus parts, if you will. But what they figured out was they could offer the more premium service to those who wanted to pay for it, and those who wanted to wait were happy to wait, right? They ended up with a 24% take rate on every call, and it saved them, I don't know if you can put this in here or not, but it saved them $7 million in profit a month.
That's incredible.
It is. And that kind of opportunity is available to companies who big and want to explore the marketing analytics power.
There's so much power in the story that you just shared, Rob. So I thank you for sharing it. Let's flip this and look at the reverse side of the coin. What is the cost of not doing analytics well?
I think it can be enormous. I think the real thing is, what's your competition doing? So if your competition is not doing good analytics, and the whole industry is not doing good analytics, then you're going to maintain your place in that position. But I had a colleague that says the one who does the math the best wins. And if somebody really delves into the analytics and does it well, and that's including all various aspects of that, especially into prediction and optimization, they're going to clean up the competition as far as like delivering.
Oh, I watched a manufacturing line be unable to make the product that the consumers wanted, and they went through 3 senior operational executives to try to make that thing happen. And this was when I was at Pillsbury, and this is great. Actually, I'm not sure Cy knows, but we never fixed it till they plucked a guy from Procter and Gamble to come and run it, right? And it was amazing what he did. But basically, he took the machine apart. The product was something called Toaster Strudle, and it was a terrific product. But the problem is the way the machine worked and the heat evaporation of the dough. The resulting product, you could never get it into a toaster because it was all, you know, fluffed up in different ways. They couldn't make a flat one, which is what they sold. So it was a delicious product, but it wasn't fit for use, right? They verified it, but they couldn't validate it. They couldn't get it in the toaster. And it cost them a fortune to figure that thing out. So had they wired those things down sooner, they would have saved millions and millions of dollars, and they would have got it to product. They would have got the product to market probably 2 years earlier and made epic dent in the market. You can still buy the product today, but this is a dated story. But yeah, you got to have it on critical things, tough decisions. You got to have good data.
That's a terrific story, Rob. They should have Jerry Seinfeld. Did he reach out to you for his movie? You know which movie I'm talking about?
No.
They did a very silly comedic movie about toaster strudels and Pop Tarts. I think it was called Toasted, and Jerry Seinfeld was the main character. I'm lamenting that he didn't reach out to you. I think you would have been perfect in there.
You couldn't get it in the toaster. Yeah, great, true story. So what I would say is analytics is the new competitive battleground for companies, right? Smart analytics. And this puts a lot of people off, but I don't think of data engineering as analytics, right? We see a lot of companies that have spent a fortune on data lakes and data reservoirs and data seas, and like they have all this data, right? And it's a tremendous amount of work to retain all that information, like everything they ever bought at what price point, who shipped it from where, what you name it, right? But turning that into a monetizing entity takes a lot of work. And I don't know if anybody ever designed such a thing for the purposes of modeling, right? But if they have, they're in better shape than if it was simply for reporting, and that's a big distinction that I'd like to make, right? Do you have the data? Can you report it in a way to inform a decision maker? Is the data renderable in such a way so that that decision maker can make predictive models? Are they forensic? Is it just historic? Or are there ways to actually fashion in future experimentation with that data to help inform the decisions?
We would used to, when we were first training people, in this, in their own area, give them, a simulation of their process and say, go solve this problem. You couldn't do it, and it's like, these are even people who designed the line. But when we go through and we build these models based on experiments, and then we use optimization techniques, and that can be a lot. I mean, tens of millions of dollars on products, or maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, maybe as a rule of thumb, I like to say, if you go into a place that is not using these techniques, you can typically, get about a 10% reduction in your ongoing cost. And again, it depends on the product that you're making, but the savings and the amount of improvement you can make are substantial. And if you do this in the marketing, it's even bigger. Now you're talking real money, as opposed to how can I just make my products and processes more efficient.
Recently, you both participated in the Unilever DataLab 5S Challenge as members of Predictum Inc. It was quite a tremendous undertaking. And so, for folks who have not heard about Unilever's DataLab ecosystem, I just invite you to talk a little bit about the ecosystem and how you, as Predictum Inc., participated in it.
So let me just take a quick whack at it for you. So Unilever, massive company, tremendous investment in analytics, massive data lake, um, many, 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 many powerful brands. And we, being one of the few preferred providers, were invited to take a look at all the data that they have and come up with innovative ways to help them make their business stronger. And they were looking for basically three things: something that was um, a whole new way of doing it, something that didn't cost them a lot to implement, and then lastly, something that had legs. So if we could do it for one brand, we could take it to many of the other brands. And a lot of what we did, we talked about today, was smart marketing analytics with experiments to understand what the consumers most want in a product, what will they pay premium for, what segments could we find that would pay the most for it, and if we optimize the formulation of these products, could we make them more profitable? And we pretty much hit on every single one of those things. And for that work, we were granted the win. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I would add to that too. Rob did a great job of, problem formulation. So this is a very fast thing. This was not like you've got 6 weeks. It's like you have 2 weeks. And, so we had to come up with an idea and actually execute the program and the experimentation and get it back analyzed, and then recommendations with a report, all in just a few weeks. And so Rob did an excellent job of formulating the problem. And that actually, when you get down to solving a lot of these problems, is the key, is how do you formulate the problem? We're talking before about, any kind of small amount of effort that gave, big results. But this is one, it was like very fast, very quick, very clean, and big savings.
Instantly, and millions of dollars. It was
Right.
big. It was really big. And one more thing. So on that, you know what it is? It's just, a couple of guys who've been in the game a while, right? We know where to hit, right? We know how to size it up and we know how to hit. Great win for Predictum. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's talk shop. Walk me through the problem that Unilever invited you on behalf of Predictum to solve, and then what steps did you take?
Well, they didn't give us frame any problem at all. It's like,
Yeah.
here's what we have. What can you do?
It
Right?
was
They didn't
exactly.
do any of that. Right? It was just, and so we spent, probably a third of the time studying what they have and what the problems could be and where we could help which is why Ty talked about the problem formulation, because that's everything. You got to be working on the right thing. And that's often how, sometimes you have a client say, hey, this is my problem, help me fix this. Well, that's half of it. Okay, let me work on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, other times, like, a client who says, why should I spend any money on marketing analytics? Well, let us take a look and we'll show you where and how and why, right? Because we don't know, but we know where to start looking, right? What we did know is Unilever was they are of the belief that superior products is their future. They need to be able to deliver unmissable benefits from their products, which are, you can't miss them. They are profound. They are delivering on jobs consumers want done. That's the doctrine. And so you can't get a more prescription of what the target looks like, right? A product that delivers on jobs consumers want done.
Mm.
And so then the exercise was, well, what are the components of delivering on those things? How do consumers experience them? And what are they willing to pay for them? At the back end of that is, and how did you validate in R&D that you're hitting that target?
So we've talked a little bit about marketing analytics, the value that it provides, how it helps to make the right product in the R&D part. We've also talked a little bit about the Unilever DataLab ecosystem and the 5S challenge that Rob and Cy, you both enjoyed being the winners of that challenge. So let's just take a step back and reflect. As Predictum Inc., what makes Predictum the most suited to solve these problems at the intersection of innovation, modeling, and experimentation?
Well, I would say it's number one, our experience. So, we're very experienced. We've worked in, many different industries. We're even, as I talked about working for Procter & Gamble, I worked across, all the different divisions in Procter & Gamble as a global owner of empirical modeling and optimization. So we have a lot of experience in this area. We have the tools, we have the capability, to solve these problems, and we can step in, very rapidly, diagnose the problem, figure out where the highest leverage areas are, and then make the recommendations, and then also to help implement those, and not just saying, okay, just solve this problem and good luck after this. We can help beyond that too. So all that experience that we've had, over our years and the technical expertise, this is something we've both done for our whole careers over this. It isn't like, let's pick this up for the last, 2-3 years because it's a hot topic. It's, we've done this over, decades of experience. And so I think that really puts us in a position that most people don't have.
I would add, to put a funnier point on it, scar tissue, right? Because we've been around a long time and done these things for a long time, we've tried a lot of things and we've seen what other people have tried. And we know it doesn't work. We know it's going to hurt you later. So we skip those things. We go right to what we know works, right? And the other thing that I would say differentiates us is our job is ultimately not to do more marketing analytics. Let me see if I can get this right. This is Phil's quote, so you're going to have to cut this. Um, we want to bring more data to the marketing scientists that they already have, rather than become our clients' data scientists, right? We want to help our clients do this work themselves, right? Our goal is not to be the outsourced shop that does this work, right? And we're very mindful of that. And we do we worry a lot about the knowledge transfer. We like to do the work with our clients collaboratively. So they have the technology and the tools on their desktop to be working these problems with us so that they can do them themselves on an ongoing basis and maintain their own models and always be available to come back around. It's like, oh, you're stuck. The model isn't working. Let's take a look, right? So it's that philosophy that allows us to best support those that like working with us. And I think that's why they do.
In both of your estimation, what does it actually take to build true analytics capability? Is it people, tools, culture? Take a step back and imagine this from an organization that is trying to do analytics and has a little bit of capability. or maybe somebody who's realizing they're new and they need to do something from scratch for the first time? What does it take to build that capability?
The culture has to change. It's like this is just how we do business. It's like we have accounting because it's necessary. Well, you need to have data analytics in whatever field you're in because it's necessary. It's part of the organization. It's organic to the organization, to the culture, and that means from the top to the bottom. So if the management says, yeah, go do data analytics, and we're not giving you any money for training, and we're not giving you any money for a computer that works or software, well, yeah, you're kind of like, it isn't that you can't do anything. I mean, I was doing it with pencil. So when I started, so you can still do things, but not in today's environment. That's not going to cut it. So changing that culture, providing the support and the necessary tools and encouragement to do that, and then you reward, the people who are doing this type of work. And you can have varying levels of experience and skill within the organization. So it isn't like everybody has to be a data analyst, but everybody needs to know how to interpret it and how to use it. And, you're going to have a select few who are going to be like, this is what we do. And then, that permeates the organization. And that is what is the means for making decisions, inside the company.
The next generation of people who work with data, the next generation of analysts, scientists, what do you hope that they will do that builds upon the foundation that you have laid?
Well, people laid foundations upon which, we're working, when we started our careers, and we've continued to go down this avenue. And, when I was at Procter & Gamble, trained thousands of engineers and scientists on how to do these techniques. And we're still, at Predictum, that's a big thing that we do is training. And so I personally love getting in and interacting with the trainees and classes, et cetera. And then there's also a lot of coaching we do, one-on-one knowledge transfer as we're working with people like Rob talked about before. And I think that what we really like is when we see those people who have taken that training or taken that knowledge that we've passed on to them, utilize it and really flourish it and take it to the next level. I mean, technology is going to continue to improve and knowledge is going to increase past, the times that we finally hang up our shoes, and, that people can really flourish in this. And I think that that's always exciting when I see people that I've worked with or work for me or have trained and they really excel in the area. And that always makes me feel good that, we've pushed ahead the technology and those people themselves have been successful.
To me, it comes down to asking good questions and being hungry and seeking knowledge, right? And making sure that it's a curious culture, right? And the new breed, those that follow, like Cy and I, we're curious, hungry, want to learn, ask good questions, right? That's the key, especially in the wave of AI, right? Best use of AI that I've seen and practiced myself is, being able to ask smart questions, right? To basically study the space, whatever it is I'm looking at, and try to understand, what's been done and what else could be done, and bringing things from other areas together to increase your intelligence.
Rob, Cy, thank you so much for sitting with me.
All
Sure,
right.
of course, our pleasure.